inside the stories that affect you. This is Inside KELOLAND.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Katie Jansen. 2010 is shaping up to be an exciting year for South Dakota's largest school district. In August, Sioux Falls students will start classes in 2 new buildings. Now, the schools have similar goals, but are very different in how they'll be run. Hundreds of students will spend part of their day at the Career and Technical Education Academy. The newly constructed building will offer career and technical classes at a single location. The CTE Academy will also be open to students from neighboring school districts. Also, 115 ninth graders will spend the full day at the district's new project-based learning school. It was just named New Technology High School. And unlike the CTE Academy, NTHS students will be the first in the district who will be learning in a whole new way. Coming up on today's Inside KELOLAND, we'll spend the entire half hour focusing on this new kind of education. We'll be joined by Sioux Falls Superintendent Pam Homan to talk about what the district will offer. Principal Diana Messick will also join us to talk about her vision and goals for the new school. Plus, we'll hear from Rick Melmer, Dean of Education at the University of South Dakota, about the special training that teachers will need before starting work at the New Technology High School. We have a lot to talk about, but first, KELOLAND's Don Jorgensen has more on the gift that helped make it all possible.
Now that the funding has come through, the school district can start finalizing plans for its new project-based learning high school on the campus at Southeast Technical Institute. Educators are excited about this new way of learning and think the students will be equally as excited.
Being engaged in just real projects that have real meaning and value, I think it's going to be attractive to a lot of kids.
The teachers will be specially trained at USD, getting away from using the traditional textbooks and lectures. Learning will be more of a hands-on approach.
I think the benefit is that really it mirrors the workplace in a sense that you work in collaborative teams, and it's very research-oriented. So kids will go out and investigate and research, try to find solutions to what they're working on in the project.
Projects, the school district says, a lot of students will find more beneficial than sitting in a traditional type classroom.
Not all kids learn in the same way, and so we want to offer different opportunities for kids.
That was KELOLAND's Don Jorgensen reporting. Now, here to talk more about the new school, we're joined by Sioux Falls Superintendent Dr. Pam Homan. Thanks for being with us today. So give us a description of exactly what the new philosophy behind the New Technology High School is.
When we think of project-based learning, Katie, and in the 21st century, you and I and those who have gone before us through education learned in what we would call silos. We went to math first period, perhaps science second period, English third period. And project-based learning is about integrating and interdisciplinary instruction. So we would learn math and science hand in hand, as well as perhaps English and history, of Spanish and global studies. And so that the concept of blending the information, the ways in which we use it in society as we go forward as adults, on teams that require us to learn in a collaborative manner and teamwork to research, evaluate, and apply our critical thinking.
What makes this type of learning and teaching so attractive? You know, why add this into the opportunities already available at the Sioux Falls District?
The Sioux Falls School District's mission statement is to educate and prepare each student to succeed in a changing world, and we take that very seriously. And we understand that if we're going to succeed for each child, we have to have multiple pathways. One size does not fit all. And so our efforts, our goal, our determination over the last 5 and 6 years has been to thoroughly evaluate and determine what new pathways do we need to put in place so that each child might succeed.
Who will be attending the school? What kinds of students will be attracted to this idea?
Actually, any and all student may put their name in the hat for the lottery to be drawn out to attend, and the type of student that would be most attracted would be that student who likes to communicate, work with people, collaborate, research, and who maybe struggles with a traditional classroom that's has a lot of lecture, you know, rows and desk, and the teacher in the front and the student in the desk.
So what will a typical student, you know, what will actually happen in the school? Every lesson will be built around a project. Kind of explain that.
For instance, the students may start the first couple periods of the day, 2-hour block, dealing with Algebra 1 and physical science. And so projects designed by the teachers, who will be highly trained, will be based upon the South Dakota standards dealing with Algebra 1 and physical science, and they're integrated into projects. So the students need to be presented that project, and then they move forward in applying research, critical thinking, and applying that knowledge to the project to come up with their solutions.
There have been a few public meetings about the topic. A good response so far? What are people saying, asking?
We've had a tremendous amount of interest by parents, and we've had several evening meetings with parents and conversations with students during the day. One of the first questions from the parents' minds are, how will we know that the teachers are trained to do this? Because this is very different from how they teach today. And we're excited to be able to report to them that we're a part of what's called the New Tech Network, the New Tech Foundation. And so our teachers will be a part of some expert training, and they'll have coaches along the way as they begin this process of teaching in this manner.
You mentioned the lottery system. Explain how that'll work. You're not opening it up to all grades at first, right?
It's the current 8th grade students in the Sioux Falls School District. Any 8th grader who's currently enrolled in the Sioux Falls schools may put their name into a lottery, and we will draw out 115 names. So the first year the school will have freshmen. The next year those students will move on to sophomore. We'll bring in another group of 115 students.
Okay, very good. And recently the district selected Principal Diana Messick. She is making the move from a Sioux Falls middle school. She'll join in the conversation when Inside KELOLAND continues. Welcome back to Inside KELOLAND. Today we're talking about a new kind of learning in Sioux Falls. We are joined now by Superintendent Pam Homan and the New Technology High School's newly named principal, Diana Messick. Thank you for being here. Let's start with you, Dr. Messick. Are you excited to be the new leader of this new...
I'm honored to be the new leader.
How did that come about? Did you put your name in a hat, or how were you chosen?
Dr. Homan called me.
What do you think your experience, you know, now being the current principal at Whittier Middle School, what do you think you can bring to this new school?
Leadership and a way to really bring staff and students together. This is a whole new concept, so we really have to all work hard at learning this new concept.
Does it make sense to you? Is this something that the district's been researching this for a couple of years? Is it something that you've believed in the whole time?
Well, since first I saw it, yes, because I had the opportunity to go to California. It was so exciting to see how engaged those students were. And I spent my time just following them around and talking to them and really getting their perspective.
What are some of your goals personally for this new school, being the new principal?
It's to bring everybody together and build a culture that's really ours, and to really build an identity for the students and the staff, and to really get it off the ground, and to really help to build that bridge between the school and the community.
What are you, both women, what are you seeing for interest in this? Are kids putting their names in the hat to be selected for this?
Yes, they are, and they're very excited.
What are some concerns from parents? You know, we talked about those meetings. What do parents want to know most? What are they thinking that, you know, any fears, concerns, excitement, that sort of thing?
I would say a common question is, so if my student, my child learns in this environment, will they succeed in college? Because as parents learn about this model, they see how it's very different than what's happening in the traditional classroom. And the good news is we've got that research of understanding, because the model has existed in the schools that we've been communicating with since the mid-90s. And so the students have a high success rate of transitioning and going on to college. You know, 100% of the students in most of the new tech schools go right on to college. And so that it's a great question, because they want to make sure if we have the courage to go this route and lead the pack in this area, will our students succeed when they graduate from the school?
There are some unknowns with this. You know, you being the new principal of this school, what are you expecting? You know, what might be some of the first year bumps? Or are you expecting problems or difficulties this first year?
It's sort of hard to see what those bumps are going to be. But I think part of that is just building the culture and building everything together. So we'll work on everything together as we move forward. The New Technology Foundation is an incredible resource for us. They've been through this. This is the road to run on. They've mapped everything out. And we'll be in constant contact with them, and they will also be here.
Describe what a student might typically do in a day. You know, what could their classroom experience consist of?
Well, they would be working on projects that were combined, if they were working on an English and speech project combined. And that's often a question that we also have received from parents, because they will still get the same traditional grades. They will still get a grade from English and a grade from speech, but then they will also have other grades, and those are on 21st century skills, such as critical thinking, written and oral communication, and all those kinds of teamwork, collaboration, because they will be working in teams.
Is part of it doing the project, and then what happens? Do they present the results of their project?
Yes, they present it. A presentation of learning, those are key components, and they are assessed on those.
What are some ways in which the community can get involved with this? I mean, I think there's a real opportunity to involve people in different professions, different walks of life in this school.
We've already had some businesses and corporations that are interested in collaborating with us, which we really encourage them to do. But also, we will be asking some of those people to be part of our school as a panel, where our students will present their learning, and they will be questioned by a panel of, could be parents or business leaders or experts in those fields.
What is it about that model, making the presentations, collaborating on this? It really mimics the real world, the working world. Is that one thing that's attractive to you?
That's the goal, is so that we can bridge that gap and they can get real world experience. Then when they go on, they're much more successful.
Give us an example of something that might, a project that might be happening, talking about that interdisciplinary projects. You've got English, that also translates, these presentations translate into speech, public speaking, that sort of thing. Sort of talk about how they overlap.
Well, one of the projects that comes to mind is a business it was a business that was a golf course, and they wanted to design a new hole, so they asked the new technology students to design that. So the students designed that as a project, so they had to learn all the angles angles, how to present it. They had to present it to the company, how they were going to market those kinds of things, what kind of an effect it had on the environment. So they bring all those pieces together in one project.
Okay, very good. Well, we'll be right back getting a look at the research, and we'll continue our conversation when we return. From research to planning, starting a new school is a huge undertaking, and today we're joined by Sioux Falls Superintendent Pam Holman and the New Technology High School Principal Diana Messick to talk about one of the latest additions within the Sioux Falls School District. There was a lot of, obviously, thought that went into this, some research. Talk a little bit about, Dr. Holman, the resources that you reached out to in thinking about adding the school.
Initially, as we've committed ourselves to improving our graduation rate and seeing that every single student in our school district is fully engaged in their learning, as we read text and read research, we kept coming upon references to this new tech model, and it seemed to be drawing a lot of attention to itself for its success rate. And so after reading, for instance, in one of the texts I was reading, I thought, I'm just going to call and find out. So we called, made some calls, and went to explore in California, a visit to one of the sites, and immediately saw why this model was gaining attention. Because as we go around our own school district, I can tell you the students self-report that about 68% of our students will say that they're fully engaged in their education, and 32% will say, we're not engaged. We're either disengaged or we're actively causing a problem. And our commitment is that every student is engaged. And when we went to these schools, we saw 100% of the students actually energized and alive with learning. And we looked at the graduation rates, the success rate of all of those graduates going on to higher education, and we knew that it was the right direction for us to move in adding another pathway of options for our students.
How many school districts across the country have adopted this new philosophy?
Initially, going into this process, as we were exploring 2 years ago, about 40 schools nationally, And however, in this next 2 years, I believe there will be about 20 to 25 more coming on board because states such as Indiana and Michigan and Ohio are really, as a state, embracing this concept.
So, Dr. Messick, you went on the California trip, is that right?
Yes.
So what did you see? What were you expecting to see, and what did you see?
I was expecting to see students that were engaged. What I saw was engagement, excitement, and enjoyment, and really kids that were really working hard and really understood research and how to really work on a project. And they could answer questions that you would ask them about their learning. You could just stop any student and ask them what they were learning, and they immediately tell you about it. And it was exciting.
As someone whose passion is education in children, what did that tell you about this new philosophy?
That it's exciting and we need to look at it.
Are there any expectations, did you, Dr. Homan, have any expectations going in, doing these visits, this research, before deciding to adopt this for the Sioux Falls District?
Well, I'll be honest with you. The one expectation I had, and I was somewhat confused, is because the name of these schools the name is either New Tech High School or New Technology High School. So when I approached the model, in addition to this belief that we would see students engaged in their learning through projects and hands-on and authentic tasks, I thought we'd see a lot of technology. And what I learned was that technology refers to a one-to-one computer ratio. So the students have access to the internet, they have access to communicate, to research and problem solve in that manner. And it's not about the depth of different kinds of technology. And so we struggled with that when we named the school, because the foundation would encourage us to stay with that name because it's a part of a national brand. Its brand is becoming well known. And so that's what we chose, to stick with what they're advising us to say, Sioux Falls New Technology High School. But that's caused a little bit of confusion for some as to why that name.
I can see that. Let's talk about some of the logistics, where it's going to be, how sports teams will work, how extracurriculars will work. Can you explain that for us?
Certainly. The location will be on the campus of Southeast Technical Institute, and what's currently in our eyes known as the Joint Use Facility. Half of that building is occupied by Southeast Technical Institute, and the other half is the University Center's original location. And that half of the building is owned by us, the K-12 school district, but it's leased to the Board of Regents, with the gentleman's agreement that should the school district or STI ever need that space, we would find a way for them to be able to move from that facility and no longer have that lease. And this is the time that works quite well, not only for us, but for the Board of Regents, because with the university campus expanding, and their operational expenses certainly can be more efficient if they're in one site than spread between two. So they will be vacating that facility so that our students over the next 2 years would be able to occupy that half of the building.
Okay. Dr. Messick, any final word for parents who might be watching this thinking, is this right for my child? How do you decide if it's right for your child?
Well, if they have any questions, I would certainly want them to either come and talk with us. We also have another opportunity. We will be holding another parent session at Patrick Henry on Tuesday evening at 7 o'clock. So I would really encourage them to come and talk to me personally, or they can attend that session. Some parents have called and have come in and talked to me because their work hours haven't permitted that they could go at 7 o'clock, and we certainly welcome that. I've had 4 or 5 parents just drop in to Whittier and come and talk to me, or call and make an appointment. So I would really encourage them to do that.
The door's open. All
door's
right.
open.
Thank you so much for being here today, ladies. Well, not just any teacher will be able to work at the new school. They'll need to go through some special training. We'll have a closer look at the new partnership with the University of South Dakota up next. Welcome back to Inside KELOLAND. The new technology high school was made possible by a grant from the Bush Foundation, and the Sioux Falls School District will work closely with the education students from the University of South Dakota. Here to explain that new partnership, Dr. Rick Melmer. He's the Dean of Education at USD. Thank you for being with us today.
Thanks, Katie.
So, are you excited about this new opportunity?
Yeah, we sure are. It's a great opportunity for our students, especially our secondary students. We have elementary programs and secondary programs, and secondary would be those that want to teach grades 7 through 12. And you heard what Dr. Holman and Dr. Messick said earlier about the need to integrate and to sort of help the learning become more relevant to the real world activities that kids are going to go into eventually. And we think this kind of preparation is going to be critical for our secondary education majors.
So explain how the grant worked, how much money it is, and that was actually facilitated through you, right?
That's correct. Yeah, we were invited by the Bush Foundation to apply. We were happy to do that. We received a $3.9 million grant over the next 10 years, and the idea is to redesign our teacher education program. So we looked for ways to sort of illustrate how we were going to do that. And at the same time that we were having this conversation, Dr. Holman and I talked a little bit about the new Tech High opportunities here in Sioux Falls. We thought that'd be a great marriage. They're trying to get a new high school off the ground. We're trying to look at a new and different way to redesign our teacher education program. So it's really two projects come together at the right time for both of us.
Well, that really worked out, didn't it?
It did. It was great.
Will your students be able to, go into the new Tech High and, I don't know, intern or shadow or watch, observe?
All of the above, really. I mean, what we're hoping to do is take our secondary ed majors, and early on they would come in and do some observing, where they would get in and watch teachers teach. And again, it would be a very different approach. Subject matters coming together, integrated together, project-based, problem-based learning. So we're going to want our students to see it because it's very different than what they've experienced at the high school level. They're coming from traditional high schools and now moving into this environment. So they're going to watch first, then they're going to come in and do some interning where they do a little teaching, and then ideally many of them are going to get a chance to actually what we call student teach, do a residency in the new high school as well.
Explain how the teaching philosophy for your education students will change because of this.
Well, essentially you're moving from what I would call a textbook-based curriculum to a project-based curriculum. So you're really going to be identifying projects or problems, ideally that exist in the local community or in the area, and then the students are going to combine their math and English and writing skills all together in science into that, solving that problem or working on that project. So it's going to be based on projects and teamwork, rather than what we would call a fairly isolated approach right now, which is a textbook, a teacher, and individual students working on their own.
Will this be for every student? I mean, or will students have the opportunity to still learn the traditional way of teaching?
No. Our secondary ed students are going to all be immersed in the new project-based learning approach. We just believe firmly that this is the direction we need to be going for the future. And no matter where they go teach someday, we want all of our graduates to go out with that kind of preparation so that they can begin to integrate that approach in their local high school.
When did this idea really show up on your radar screen, this new philosophy of teaching?
Well, again, it's the new Tech High concept, as Dr. Holman mentioned, has been around for a couple of years, but I know that they were talking with large districts all around the country, Sioux Falls being one of them. And so when we started to hear about that conversation going on, we were really trying to look at how can our education program be distinct and unique. And teaching the traditional way was not going to get that job accomplished. So we just felt like this marriage was one that really made sense for us, and also a way to help sustain this project-based learning approach long-term in our region is to train teachers that are going to go out into schools all around this area and implement that same approach in their classrooms.
Do you see this growing, more schools picking this up?
Well, we think so, yeah. In fact, I think this high school is going to be a model for the region. You're going to find principals and teachers coming in and watching these teachers teach and then trying to go back and replicate that in their local schools. We think the university can be a training center for teachers from around the region, too, to come and learn how to integrate that approach in their classrooms.
Well, we look forward to seeing what happens with this. We'll certainly follow up.
About it.
Good, thank you. Thank you for joining us. You can find out more about today's topics online at KELOLAND.com. Just click on the Inside KELOLAND section. That's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us on Inside KELOLAND.